Hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Say hello. Thank you for joining me live. I am jumping on to talk about ESG frameworks. It's a topic that has just been on my mind lately. So I did actually speak about it at the start of the week, just briefly, but I wanted to go into it in a little bit more detail and talk about it today. So I'm just checking I'm live. It looks like it's all good. So say hello if you are on here. Don't be shy. Ask questions as well along the way. That's what these sessions are for. I run them for a little bit longer on Wednesdays, most Wednesdays, and the whole point is to make sure that it's interactive and it answers your questions as well, and also talks about topics that you guys are interested in hearing about. So, of course, all related to sustainability. So today we're going to talk about ESG frameworks. The pathway of reporting or mapping out the frameworks and reporting through this process to align to your ESG requirements. That's what today is all about. But first, for a little bit of context, ESG reporting, what is it? So essentially, it's a way to create transparency in the way that companies impact the environment, social systems, human systems, and governance, and obviously through their governance. So really through the environmental, social, and governance systems, to put it most simply into ESG thinking. And so a big part of that is to look at the impacts of these companies, the risks that they take on, and then how are they impacting their stakeholders as well, and how they're aligning to what their stakeholders need. But the thing is, here's where it gets really complex. So this idea of ESG has been around for a little while now, and as such, there's been a lot of development of frameworks of thinking, ways to report for companies to essentially report and disclose what they're doing within their business, obviously transparently, so that their investors feel secure in what the company is saying. But there's roughly, I'm estimating here based on some numbers that I've seen, but there's over 600 frameworks out there worldwide. I'm talking at global levels, at national levels, state levels, industry sectors. So there's frameworks across a range of sort of categories or regions. And so it makes it quite complex, right? It's a very complex field. How does a company pick which are the ones that they really align with, or which is the one that really will enhance their operations, align to their stakeholder needs, their investor expectations? How do they pick the right frameworks with the key metrics that they need to understand their ESG impact? So just side note, I can see a few of you on here on LinkedIn. So say hello, make sure that you put up your questions if you have any, but otherwise just say hello. It'd be great to know I'm not just talking to myself, which I'm sure I'm not. So as I said, there's a lot of frameworks out there. It is really complex. And now what is starting to see is we're starting to see this trend as companies move towards, these frameworks move towards consolidating as a unified system. And so I'm going to present this little image that I have, which is actually, since I got it, outdated as well, because there's been quite a few updates since. So essentially, it just goes through the key frameworks that are out there, and specifically how they are starting to consolidate and merge onto kind of a unified system of thinking. And so hopefully you can see my screen now. So as I said, this is outdated since I last presented this. And the reason is that, so you can see some of these frameworks here, which I'll just run through what they are first, and then I'll tell you why this image is outdated. So we've got the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI. It's one of the most widely used reporting frameworks, and it's essentially a very comprehensive standard reporting across economic, environmental, social impacts. And it's very widely used by some of the biggest companies, the biggest N100 companies, G250 companies around the world. So the biggest companies tend to use GRI. They also tend to use SASB or SASB, which is a Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. And so they report against these frameworks because they're the most well recognized. But the one that's probably also been around for the longest period of time is CDSB, or which was previously known as the Carbon Disclosure Project. And so that's really a global disclosure project specifically looking at carbon, which is energy and resources. And it essentially enables organizations or systems like cities, states, regions to measure, manage their environmental impacts and essentially create a comprehensive self-reported system around carbon. And so that's specifically focused on carbon. But what we're starting to see now is there is this movement towards merging these frameworks because they want to be able to simplify this very complex framework reporting system or really ecosystem. And so what we're seeing is because more and more companies, not just the large ones, but even the smaller companies and medium companies, they're all wanting to start reporting, and it is such a complex and really convoluted and what's the other word for it? Busy space. It's really difficult for a company to go in there and then pick the one that is best for them. And so what we're starting to see is, so there's the ISSB, which is the International Sustainability Standards Board, and they are driven by the IFRS, which is the International Financial Reporting Standards. So the ISSB is the most crucial framework to really look out for right now, because what they're doing is, through the work of the IFRS, is consolidating these frameworks. So you can see in this image here, I'm just looking to my screen on the right, but you can see the CDSB, GRI at the top here, and you can see SASB. And actually, this is outdated now because GRI, I think, since their MOU has been announced, it's progressed substantially, and they're now actually developing the standards for aligning to the ISSB. And similarly, so is the TCFD, which is the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. So it's a financial framework with about 11 recommendations around physical and transitional risks in terms of climate change. And so the TCFD have already released a standard that's in conjunction with, the TCFD have already worked with IFRS to release IFRS S2, which is a climate-related disclosure that meets TCFD requirements, which is really great because it just brings in everything under a unified system. And so even if you, say, had TCFD accreditation before, you could easily bring that in and merge that into a more unified framework under the IFRS, which is the ISSB, because they've already got now a system in place to, I guess, merge your data that was previously in the TCFD system. So that's the really wonderful thing that we're seeing now, and it's making it a lot easier for companies to actually start reporting. But I wanted to also talk about what is really important to set up in your business when you decide that you want to go down this pathway eventually, because you're not going to decide today and then start doing it tomorrow. It's a process. It definitely takes time. But there's a 10-stage modular process that, that my colleagues know, that this is what we work through with our clients, and this is how we help our clients become aligned with ESG principles of thinking. So the first thing is external and internal processes, really kind of understanding what those are. So deciding which are the external and the internal processes that you really want to report on. So really, essentially, the first step is creating a boundary. Just to put it simply, is we're creating a boundary on what it is we want to consider within our reporting journey. The second thing is doing a materiality assessment. So materiality assessments are a really great way to understand what your stakeholders, that's internal and external stakeholders, have identified as key specific impacts or risks within your business, within the ESG thinking. And so when you're speaking to them, when you're, whether you do it through questionnaires or surveys or direct workshops or interviews, you really get to know what it is that they're facing at their level of interaction with your business. And then the third thing is, what are the impact categories that now make most sense for your business in particular to consider when reporting down this ESG pathway? And of course, that goes in line with the next step number 4, which is selecting that reporting framework that you ultimately want to report to, whether it's GRI or SASB. You might have a particular interest in those, or you might just want to flow in through the ISSB, which is, as I said, that unified consolidated framework. Then step number 5 is, how do we develop a policy framework or a direct management approach that essentially sets up policy thinking within the business, so governance principles. So really, it's the things that we're committed to as a business, and that's what step 6 is really about. We're up to step 5. Step 5 is really about that policy framework and making sure that our governance principles of thinking are going to help drive these ESG success pathways forward. So once we've got that in place, then we can start to build out the ESG roadmap. You start to build out the pathway. That means, looking at where the business was, where do they want to be, closing in that gap, deciding what are the actions that need to be taken, setting up, measurement accountability systems as well within the business, so that people are accountable, that there are accountable systems within the business to be able to measure, verify what's going on. And then the next step is really that capacity building and progress plan as well. So, how do we make sure there's capacity within the business to actually drive this ESG pathway forward? And, what does success really look like? And that's what that progress plan is all about. That then takes us to step 8, which is now we're getting to a place where we can start to create a disclosure report. So the disclosure report against whichever framework that you picked at the start, this is where you get to now disclose and report and disclose on your ESG metrics. And then finally, you create that external audit report, because you do want to make sure that the report, that whether you created it in-house, your disclosure report, or whether you created it with a consultant, it needs to be externally verified by an auditor, because that's how they create integrity in this process of reporting. So that's what step 9 is about. And then finally, you hopefully will receive that accreditation and maintain it as well. It's an ongoing process. You don't just get it as a one-off, you're GRI approved or accredited. You really have to continue to maintain this. So yeah, those are all of the steps. There's quite a few steps in that, but this is how we walk clients through this process of becoming ESG aligned and embedding really strong ESG principles in place. So even if, say, this these frameworks of thinking or this landscape around ESG frameworks change, what we help you do is essentially establish the right policy framework, before that even, we help you establish the right metrics that you need to report on, the right categories that you want to measure against, and then build out a roadmap that will help you do that, and an accountability system and a reporting system that will also help you do that, so that you're ultimately aligned to the key ESG principles that are really driving this, I guess, ESG landscape in terms of reporting. So that's, I think, what's really important, is setting up those fundamental or foundational systems so that your business is ready to report. So I feel like I've talked a lot of information that I've had to share here. If you have any questions, let me know. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. But as I said, this one is at this point outdated, because there has been more changes even since I came across this image, which was around last year, really 2022, towards the end of last year. So it's really rapidly moving space. It's changing quickly. And all I can say with certainty is it's not going away in any way. What it will do is just ground itself more, I guess, legitimately through compliance, through regulations, through policy. It will definitely ground itself in the way that we do business. So it's really here to stay. So it's really a matter of how can your business do this best. And remember, at the core of it, this is not about making things difficult for your business, but ultimately about protecting your business and ensuring that your business has long-term sustainability, not from just an environmental perspective and a social perspective, but also from a economic perspective. So, ESG, which is, really covering sustainable principles, does cover the 4 key pillars of sustainability, which is environmental, social, human, and economic. So it is about making money, it is about profit, but profit that is purposeful, that is sustainable, and really aligned to the most, progressive, sustainable principles of thinking. So yeah, I hope that this has been valuable for you. I'm probably going to end it off here. As I said, I try to do these every week to share information, to take some time out of my day, but also to share it with you guys. And I'm grateful for the ones who have taken time out of their day to stay with me as well online and listen to these talks. But if you have any specific topics that you think are really important to cover, then let me know, because I'm not always well aware of what people are wanting to hear about. So, share that with me. I'd love to hear. And other than that, have an incredible rest of your week. And take care of yourselves. And of course, remember, you're all part of this journey. So, do your bit to be more sustainable in your lives, in your social lives, in your family lives, and in your business. And that's all for now. Take care, everybody. Bye.